talk about the Reality Capture Network conference. We have the presence of Matthew Baer, a visionary leader, influencer, and expert in the world of construction technology and reality capture. He founded Nexus 3D Consulting in 2016, and in 2020, Matthew founded the Reality Capture Network, which has grown into the largest community of reality capture professionals. And Dr. Rui Eicher, PE, PhD, is Director of Research and Education at Bay Forum Global. Dr. Eicher will be moderating today. Welcome.
Thank you, Luisa, and thank you very much, Matt, for making time to visit with us. We're really excited to get to hear some about the conference. Today's discussion, I really want to keep it more just as a dialogue, and Luisa might give me some presenter ability we might show at the end. But first, just to get started, we're going to be talking a lot about reality capture. Obviously, that's what the conference is about. But how did you even get into this business? Tell us some about how you got started in the building industry in general.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks again for the invitation to come talk. Anytime somebody says, "Hey, you want to talk about reality capture and what you're doing?" my answer is always yes. So if I go back a little bit to how I got started, I actually grew up, my father as a licensed land surveyor. So, when I was a kid, I started getting taken out to see what surveying was like, riding in the truck and watching, doing topos and things like that. When I first got into surveying, I was actually in high school. And when I look back, being younger, surveying wasn't really an attractive job, I don't think, for me at the time. And honestly, I think that's how a lot of people in the survey industry get started. They have a relative or somebody says, "Hey, you want a summer job? Come work on a field crew." And then they end up just sticking with it as a career. And for me, that was kind of my path, being that I had family in the industry. I got into surveying as a job. And when I was younger, again, it wasn't something I was super excited about. You're riding in a truck, you're going out in the heat, you're nailing, stakes in the ground. But what really happened for me was several years into survey and kind of traditional CAD work, we learned about laser scanning. And that is what became really the game changer for me, and my passion for my work was when I started learning about the new technologies that were coming around and the applications for them. So getting into laser scanning and figuring out how can we use these new technologies to enhance our work as a survey company, mapping facilities, mapping buildings. And, over the next several years after learning about it, it just got me excited to see there's so many applications for new technologies, laser scanners, LiDAR, drones. That's where it all started. And I mean, I could keep the story going about the next several years of, starting a business around it, starting a community, starting a podcast. Really where I am today is my overall mission and goal is to raise awareness to the different technologies that are available, raise awareness to the opportunity in construction technology around reality capture, and then help companies learn how to implement tools to successfully, increase their the efficiencies, the safety, the time reduction within different built environment industries, from oil and gas facilities to buildings. It's very diverse.
So I can definitely relate to how we got into the business. I mean, my father was in development, and I remember just being on job sites 4 or 5 years old. Sometimes weekends he would be checking jobs, and I just knew I wanted to do something in the built environment. Just from seeing, the raw land being shaped and then it turning into a building and a site, a campus, whatever the project may be. Where it was a lot of your early experiences with laser scanning, were you tying together, I guess, buildings to the site, or were you doing things like subgrade civil utilities while they were open? What was some of that background?
Yeah, so the very first application for us was one looking at kind of our traditional survey topos, right? Where we're going
Okay.
to a site, we're using GPS and we're taking shots on,
Yeah.
curbs and on building
Right.
corners. And well, anytime a survey crew goes out to do this massive detailed topo, it's very common that we forget to take shots or someone missed a shot or
Yeah.
there's just so many details on a site that before laser scanning, you're taking one measurement at a time. And so laser scanning was this kind of eye opener to us of we don't have to just take a shot on the corner of a piece of concrete
Right.
or on the edge of a curb. The laser scanner helps us document the whole scene and bring that back virtually to be able to extract information from. So our very first application was how can we use the scanner to enhance our survey collection of
Okay.
topo. And then the second one, we were doing a lot of work in oil and gas fields and oil and gas facilities. And so we always had these conversations with some of those clients on, survey is great from all the long pipes and out in the field. But as soon as you get to the facility,
Yeah.
now it's very complex. And, before scanning, trying to do good as-built in a facility environment with
Right.
tape measures and total stations, very laborious, very hard to get good detail back into the office and build, true good as-builts from. So those were our first two applications looking at the scanning technology.
No, it's incredible background. For a number of years, when AGC had BIM Forum, I was in leadership from '08 on, and we would do 3 conferences a year and travel around the country a whole lot. And you'd ask audiences, how many of you are using, laser scanning, reality capture? And it seems like around 2010, 2011, 2012, there would be like a third to half of the audience would start raising their hands. And many of the audiences were regional. These were probably 200 to 300 person conferences at that time. And over half the attendees were local. So non-scientific data collection, but you could really start to see it pick up, particularly in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things I also noticed is these were individuals coming from all backgrounds into reality capture. Are you still seeing that as a cross section? Like if you looked at through the reality capture network, is it a pretty diverse cross section?
Yeah,
reality capture.
It really is. And honestly, the diversity of application is part of what had me start Reality Capture Network, because as a laser scanning professional, and when I started my business, I started getting pulled into projects so diverse. I tell people, if you can think of the type of project, I've probably worked on it, from crime scenes to boats in Alaska to underground gold mines to entertainment and movie sets. I started getting pulled into so many different industries. It opened my eyes to realize this is not just a way to enhance survey. The technology is actually creating capabilities that were really not possible before. A movie set didn't want to go out there with a tape measure. Like, it needs the actual documentation. And then very complex surfaces, like when we went out and did some of the ships in Alaska, right? Those are very hard for them to get accurate measurements of without fully mapping the whole surface. So I believe that there is application for scanning and reality capture in whole across every industry, because everyone has different needs for documentation of the built environment, whether it's the crime scene and documenting how things sit so they can go reinvestigate it, or whether it's a construction application where they need the accurate measurements to build from. There's kind of all aspects.
Sure. And we're going to touch some on just the varieties, but reality capture goes far beyond laser scanning, really.
Yes.
If you think about it.
Yeah. In fact, I'll throw out, I'll throw out my thoughts when we use the term reality capture, because I believe historically people thought reality capture just means laser scanning. And today, the way that we phrase it is, to us, reality capture is everything that has to do with technology and innovation in capturing information of the site, creating deliverables and
Right.
delivering visualization. Or so when we look at reality capture, we don't say it's just laser scanners. We're looking at cameras, we're looking at drones, we're looking at scanners, we're looking at all the software platforms that processes that data or helps create deliverables from it, from BIM to analysis to online hosting. So we look at that whole ecosystem as far as reality capture goes.
Yeah, one of the things we'll may get to a little later, but the BIMform Global's reality capture specification, one of the things we worked on when we were putting it together was to consider, the entire built environment, in the sense that vibrations can be an issue. And we're seeing projects where there's a number of vibration sensors. Enclosing the building and monitoring temperature, sound. When you consider the dimension of safety, you start to look at air quality. And what we're seeing is early pilot projects being tested where we've got sensors geometrically scattered throughout the building. And those are as much reality capture as the geometry. You're starting, but because you're tying it back to the geometry. If I'm going to be doing a federal courthouse and putting in high-end wood finishes in the courtroom, I need to know the building is dried in. I need to know a certain temperature range, humidity levels. And if the workers are working in those areas, they're starting to look at the air quality. Do they need masks? Do they need hearing protection? And what areas do they need it? When do they need it? And tying that back geo-referenced to the model. So later, I want to get to the kind of presenters you have slated to it, but not to give away all the secrets, but do we have any sneak peeks of broader views of reality capture at your conference coming up? We're about a month out, and just I want to reiterate for everyone, I've left the splash screen up here. This is in October, so we're about a month out, right, from the conference?
Yeah. So, this is our third conference. We started it 2 years ago because we, going to different events, we found that some of them had a little portion that talked, there were a couple presentations that talked about scanning or talked about drones, but the majority of current events don't go deep into the technologies. And there are a couple, but we started building a pretty big community because of our podcast and trying to build education. And we said, it kind of makes sense to bring this community in person, because I've always found the most value in actually meeting face-to-face at events, getting to shake hands, spend the evening sitting and talking and building that relationship. Because then I found I do that at other events. And then, in the next 6 months, I'm like, hey, I remember that guy that's really good at XYZ, and I have someone to actually connect with. And I feel that is the path for us to increase the adoption in the industry in whole, is through collaboration with other experts. And so that's really why we started the event. This is our third year. We're expecting between 600 and 800 people likely by the time we get to the event, which is October 16th to 19th. And, a couple things that I think are unique about our event. One, we decided to keep a one-stage format. So I like to use the example of, it's kind of like the TEDx event of construction technology, where we cultivate a diverse audience. We cultivate a diverse lineup of speakers. So we pick what we think is important for the audience to listen to, and they don't have to go figure out which class to go to, or there's not competing classes. Right. It's just one stage. So we bring in speakers that are sharing case studies on ways that they implemented a tool, right? Or we have presenters that are end owners that are representing and sharing their vision for digitization within their organizations and the needs that they have. So I kind of say our conference is like a big user group of people that make the technology, people who use the technology, and people who need the technology, which is kind of the ultimate, trifecta in order for it to actually make progress happen at one event.
That's incredible. It really is. I mean, I think to get a broad base, particularly with owners and large general contractors, those are consuming the services, if it is a service venue, as well as those that have in-house reality capture teams.
Yep.
You know, we alluded to a little to it as we were visiting before this presentation. We talked some about just the knowledge economy, and you know, when we were in industrial revolution and had an economy based on patents and keeping trade secrets, it's because we were producing widgets, and you maintained your value by secrecy. In this new knowledge economy, I really do think you gain more by sharing.
Yeah.
And I found that to be the case, that when two firms partner together and they share processes and workflows, when it's about understanding knowledge, obtaining it, and analyzing it, that both firms walk away with more value. They're
Yeah.
stronger. And statistically, not everyone's going to do that. So the third, if you looked at a bell curve, the third of any given population that does keep training and keep moving forward is going to excel. But you need a venue where you can get everyone together to
Yeah.
do that kind of sharing. And so I want to commend you for doing that, because I think you'll be enriching all the attendees if they go, because I often will go to events that are similar to this format, and I walk away finding, other firms like you've talked about, where that you can partner with. Hey, I remember that person that was stronger in this other thing I want to get stronger at, but I've got a job here and they're over there. How do we work together and grow?
Yeah. 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 I think all that is just so true. I think that collaboration really is the path forward. And, I don't mind giving a few thoughts here. Some of it I'm going to be presenting at our conference as some new announcements, some of our roadmap of where we're going. I think there's a big need. I'll just say this at a high level. I think there's a big need for education content and for some of these diversity of technologies starting to have certain standards in place and starting to have potentially certification processes in place, because some of the struggles that I've seen over the years are, and everybody knows this, everybody who has worked in scanning has heard a client say, we tried that one time and it was terrible. It either the data didn't work or, whoever did it, the data was inaccurate. Like, there's been a lot of bad experiences when it comes to reality capture in whole.
Yeah.
And I believe we're at this point where we're still seeing a massive growth of new adopters that are just now trying to pick, what scanner do I buy? What projects what workflows do I implement to stay accurate? And the reason I think that what you talked about a minute ago, the sharing of knowledge, I believe, is so important today for us as an industry, for construction technology, for reality capture industry. The reason I think knowledge sharing is so important is some of us have been doing this for over 10 years. We have gone through the headaches. We have messed up jobs. We have figured out the right way to do it. And so all the new people getting in today, if they keep messing up projects because they don't have that information yet, it hurts the industry. It hurts the clients. The clients don't trust the technology. So I believe those of us that are veterans of the industry, the benefits that will come of us working together, sharing knowledge, creating some of these guidelines, training new people, it is that saying that all ships rise with the tide, right? If we create better material so everybody is just doing better work, the projects are successful, the clients like it, they're willing to invest in making it part of the project. It increases the whole industry, the need to buy more scanners, the more services for the service providers. Everybody wins in the scenario that we work together as a community to improve the industry.
Yeah. Now, long term, because I could also see this crossing over between manufacturing, reality capture, building construction, civil survey, site, and we may get to it a little later where we talk about tolerances in the global spec. But when the conference started 3 years ago, how would you divide that up? Land survey, civil, building construction versus other? Could be aerospace manufacturing in general. And then what is it today, and where do you see it growing the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd have to actually get my chart out to show you the breakdown of industries, but I would, off the top of my head, I would tell you that 30% is probably the construction side. Sure. Another 30% is survey, civil, like and part of that is because those are the people also that are into trying to adopt it and implement it. And then the other 40% is really spread across industrial facility owners, asset owners, forensics, entertainment, lots of other industry applications.
And vendors thrown in.
And vendors. But I would say the biggest part of our community are people in the AEC industry that are working on buildings, that are working on construction, that need measurements. They're trying to improve design processes. Those are the biggest adopters today. I do believe that all of the industries are going to keep growing in application. I think some of them I think are still early on and are going to see a lot of growth and improvement. So I think that there's a need when we talk about training and standards and development and workflows. I see this vision, which again, part of it we'll present next month, on the need to dive into each of those specifically, because they all have different requirements when it comes to what is the best workflow for gear that should be used to capture the data for industrial facility accuracies versus building tolerances versus forensic sites. You know, they all have different workflows. And I think that's one of the challenges I've seen is that a lot of times someone goes and buys one piece of gear, or they buy the cheapest piece of gear, and then they try to do all the different types of projects. And that's where we get into trouble. We do have to start developing best practices and guidelines so that even the owners that are asking for scanning, or the GCs or whoever it is, if they're asking for drone work or scanning work or documentation work, they need the understanding of how to ask for the, ask for it so they know what to look for. So I think there's just a lot of need in every direction.
Yeah, it's a much broader toolbox that really handles the different challenges. And I think I do see that individuals get their first scanner of some type, and then that's their hammer, and then everything starts looking like a nail.
Yeah.
Some things need a screwdriver, some things need a little more finesse.
Or you're going to break something. If you try to hammer in a screw, it's just going to break off. It's not going to work very well.
Not good at all. I think so. There's a few other topics I had listed here. These are going to be a little tangential to direct reality capture. One emerging area we're starting to see is obviously digital layouts been growing over the last 10 years with things like point layouts. We're also starting to see innovative systems that are printing on the concrete, and then also laser projection systems. You kind of need to have a limited amount of ambient light so you can actually see the laser projection on the floor. And so this is really kind of reality capture going full circle, because you need to have some spatial awareness, and then the unit needs to be tied into some kind of benchmarks.
Yeah.
But you're then bringing the digital world to reality. And so it's almost as if it's reality projection.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the flip coin of the capture. Are we going to see any, what areas might we see about that? Again, I don't want you to go through the whole attendee list, but
that's all good. I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind sharing. I mean, I believe that there is, if I was to look further into the future, I think we're going to see a lot of those technologies starting to mix. Right now, everything is still kind of siloed and split up, right? Design teams are using the BIM model. The surveyors are going and scanning, and then somebody's creating drawings so that they can use it. And then they often have coordinate issues, and people are not on the same coordinate system. And then the people going to layout aren't using the models yet, which they could be getting benefit there. And then, augmented reality or glasses on site are not really getting used yet. So right now, everything's kind of split up. I think down the road, if we said, what does it look like in 5-10 years? I think everybody is using the same type of information. Every project is getting documented. There is a shared coordinate system. There is a digital twin or digital model, visual model of a building that is getting used by the design team, getting used on site by the construction team for layout, for visualization. So I believe that's where we get to. And today, everybody's kind of working on different aspects. And so we will have presentations at our conference this year of major construction firms starting to pilot and use autonomous capture with the Spot Robot Dog or robotics. So we're looking at, can we in the future consistently document a site without people being there? You know, we're starting to look at automation. We're also going to see a presentation from another construction firm who used augmented reality with their model on site to verify build, you know, where hangars were placed. So I think that some of those technologies are still not really adopted, but I think a lot of people are in this pilot phase of how do we integrate the robotics? How do we integrate the visualization? One thing that I do think is really key for all of that to work together in the future is coordinates, though. And this is something that I talk about a lot coming from a survey background. A lot of people who own scanners today don't understand control, don't understand survey, don't understand accumulated error, things like that. And I think it's something so important for the industry to learn about, because whether you're a surveyor or not, whether you have it in-house or not, I don't think that part matters. What I think matters is you understand how it needs to be implemented, because you can hire a surveyor to come out and shoot some targets in. But in order for the scan data, the model data, the robotics, the layout, all of that to work together and not have issues, you're going to have a shared coordinate system and a certain tolerance that everybody's on the same page about.
One area that the BIMform Global's LOD spec added in the 2022 version was points. There's now a point element in the BIMform Global LOD spec, and it's for exactly what you're talking about. A point can be approximate or specific within a tolerance. And these are used really on each level of a high rise. You've got to have benchmark points. And that's a very important object. And then lines were added. And those get critical into property boundaries. A special class previously existed in national LOD specifications, which was grid lines. But the 2022 version of BIMform Global specification, we added in points and lines as distinct objects. But it was really tying back to this whole coordinate issue, because a lot of the research we're seeing is you'd have manufacturing. If you had conveyor systems in an airport, escalators, elevators, they have their local coordinate system for that manufactured element. And then there's a local coordinate for the building. And then that building's on a campus. And sometimes it made sense for that to have a local campus coordinate. And then that ties into a state plane. But then you got to decide, are you correcting for surface coordinates, or are you using state plane coordinates? And if you have a large enough campus, you've got to do some conversions there, because your laser scanner is just picking up at the surface. And
all of that right there currently is this big, messy spaghetti, on almost every project. Like,
yes,
I don't see very many projects that there's not some issue between different teams on coordinates, and starting to put that into a process so that we can approach a project. We know how we're going to set it up from the beginning. We communicate about that, so we don't run into all these headaches and different documents, I think is super important.
Are you going to have some of the speakers weave in, so yourself, you've got a lot of experience in that. And so some of that would be, it's like, man, I've known this for 10 years, but then the other half of the audience needs to hear it. How are you going to approach that? Are you going to have more basic level content weaved in through each speaker, or is there going to be like sections? How are you approaching that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Being early on, I would say that I've been personally trying to take a diverse approach in who's presenting, what they're presenting on, the size of the project, the experience level of the job, because I want the content at the event to be diverse enough, but also I want it to be able to speak to people who are coming because they have no idea yet and they want to learn.
Yes.
And then I also want to hit on the expert level,
Right.
case study. So I would say that there's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
There are major presentations that are big projects that are going to go into the detail. And then there's for example, we got another firm who just in the last couple of years started integrating it in. And I see the value in presenting both, because we look at, the 10-year experience, and then how are we seeing new firms integrate it? The other part that I actually really enjoy as well is we have our presentations, and then we also have panel conversations. So each day we have 2 and sometimes 3 panel conversations that have 8 experts sitting on to talk about a subject. Some of them are very relevant to what we're talking about now. When we talked about different scanning devices, you called it a toolbox. We have a panel called the Reality Capture Toolbox.
Oh, wonderful.
The goal of that panel is 8 different people from construction background, a survey, to coming together on that panel to just discuss the different tools, how they're seeing it, their perspective, what they've experienced. And I love those because they're very casual conversation where, hey, you're not just answering this one question. I want the industry to come and share their experience, because, we may learn something new that we didn't know, right? Or and even the panelists, we're going to learn as we talk about it. So I don't know if that answers the question direct, but it's a pretty diverse volume of content. And I don't mind some of the companies, that are going to be presenting. Just for an example of the variety, I'll give you a few different ones. So ExxonMobil, they are coming as an organization sharing their vision for the future way of working, for an industrial metaverse, for digital twins of their facilities. And so they're coming from that owner perspective, saying, this is what we would like to move toward. Here are some of the struggles. This is what we need from industry. So we got that kind of side of things. Then we have, people like Jacobs Engineering and AECOM and Turner Construction that are kind of coming from the construction, the design side, talking about what are they as a company doing within innovation? What tools are they adopting? How are they implementing it on projects? And then we have some that are from some vendors that are collaborating and sharing case studies about how, the Verum digital twin solution is being used by one of those organizations. And what does that hosting look like? And how are they integrating data into visual models? And so it's a pretty big mix of new technologies, use case of technologies across different industries, and industry perspective, some future thought.
No, that's really valuable. And one of the things that's impressed on me is just in this space of reality capture, how rapidly we're seeing the effects of the technology growth, because you're dealing with equipment. And so battery capacities have gotten greater, processors have gotten much faster over the last 10 years. Drones are able to fly longer, collect more data, they're lighter. Memory has gotten much more economical. Operating systems have gotten better to process large data. And so, I've always said that, even if you went to an event like yours a year ago, and it was the same teams again this year, I could make a case it's well worth attending, because it's moving that fast. It's hard. Whereas in the modeling world, probably the biggest shift the last 10 years I see for teams is cloud computing and remote processing and data analysis. Which we may touch on a little bit. I want to ask you also about the data side of it. But
and I'll just say on that note you're making about kind of, what does it look like from year to year? My personal goal is I want to continue to find all of the new technologies, a new software, a new processing platform, a new online hosting. We have some companies coming this year that are vendoring that I've never seen before, that are robotics platforms and cloud processing and different. So my goal is that there's always some type of new technology. There's somebody new. And again, even if at some point that part slowed down, the part that I think is the most valuable, if I had to say one part, is honestly the networking.
Right.
I go to so many other events, and I feel like, you're sitting in classes all day. They have this one little window, 5 to 6 p.m. Come grab a drink, and then it shuts down, and everybody, waits, goes back the next day. Where I have seen the most connections, building a business, building relationships, finding clients, finding partners, is after all that amazing education, all those presentations, is hanging out in the evening and having longer conversations, more time to build those relationships. Right. That is where I have seen the biggest value for me personally at other events. And it's where I'm putting an enhanced focus at ours, is saying, let's not shut down at 5 p.m. and everyone's done, and then they get lost and figure out who's going where. Let's keep that open and have an extended time of hanging out, entertainment. I keep saying this, everyone says business is done on the golf course, right? Because you're having fun together, you're relaxed, even though it's not a business thing, it's the relationship building. So we put a purposeful focus in building that into the end of each evening at our event.
Oh, that's incredible. I think it also hits on something we've talked about a lot in, BIM Forum Global over time, is that it's really the sociology of change that's the hardest. If you looked at the transition to virtual design and construction, you might think of it as 10% technology, 90% sociology. And I think one of the values of you hitting both basic content and more advanced content is those firms doing more advanced content are hiring people that are completely new or coming from other firms that are not using the technology to the extent of the cutting edge like the advanced firm is trying to do. So even those advanced practitioners need training resources to level the knowledge and level the baseline of standards. Standards are great, but the challenge is if everyone's got their own standard in your organization, you're dead. And training is how you overcome that.
And I see that as one of the big missing gaps right now, which is something we're going to be putting a focus on, is we want to be able to start helping train and produce and provide courses and because nobody's producing enough new laser scanning, reality capture, drone pilot, BIM modeling people to keep up with what I believe the growth curve is going to look like over the next few years.
Right.
Somebody needs to be helping train new people, inspire new people to get into the industry, or we're just going to keep having a resource issue too.
Yeah. And really you've mentioned a little before, next I want to get into the digital twin discussion, but one of the things that leads up to digital twins are if you line 100 people up, you might almost get 100 different definitions of what is a digital twin.
Yep.
But a component of it is that the model is being responsive with real-time information or new information over an interval of time. And then we can debate how fast that interval is and what is that information. But if you just look at a reality capture in a broader sense, modeling, the level of development of the elements in the model, and the information coming from reality capture are fundamental ingredients to digital twins. It's almost as if everyone's got their own chocolate chip cookie recipe. But at the end of the day, you're going to have chocolate chips, you're going to have milk, you're going to have eggs, you're going to have flour. And at the end of the day, in a digital twin, you're going to have a model, you're going to have information coming in, which I would say is reality capture at a certain interval. And you're also going to have large data sets and data analysis. And so talk to us a little bit about digital twins, and what do you have in Slate in the conference where we might scratch on those kind of surfaces? And you can kind of take it any direction you want out of those cookie ingredients.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I agree. There are a lot of people taking terms like digital twin and just throwing it around. And I mean, I saw one the other day on social where, somebody just said, hey, a point cloud is just another term for, or digital twin is just another term for an as-built. I'm like, that is not the case, and we have to be careful as an industry to, like, as terms come around, as meanings are made, we have to start trying to define and use them properly, because again, all we're doing if we throw that term around is we're confusing the clients who actually have a vision for integrating digital twins. It starts getting messy. So to me, digital twins is that next level. It is geospatial, it is mapped, but it's linked with real data, and it's further than just another term for model or point cloud or mesh. I had the pleasure of recently having on the podcast Dr. Michael Greaves that came up with the term and digital twins, and talking about what that vision is for the future. And there's another organization, Digital Twin Consortium, who's trying to put an effort behind creating that definition and creating, paths for how it gets used in different industries. And to me, again, like we talked about earlier, I truly see this future that, and I was happy to hear Dr. Greaves had some of the same vision of, in the future, there is going to be digital twins of almost every asset. Like, the technology is going to get to the point that our roads and our bridges and our buildings and all are tied in geospatially. They all have mapped data. They all have sensors. Those are going to integrate into how we navigate into our phones, how we get through spaces. It's, and further in the future, when AR glasses are to the point that it's not a big battery pack, but you can walk through and use it for wayfinding and things. That's where I see the future. Today, I see quite a few companies starting digital twin programs, starting pilot projects. And that vision for them is, we have a lot of assets. We want to create models that we can use of these. We want to link our data. So if I look at some of the conversations happening at our conference this year, we will be looking at digital twin presentations and conversations in the rail industry, the power industry, an airport, oil and gas. There's quite a few conversations specifically around digital twin. And again, even deep in those presentations, we'll see exactly what their vision is and what they're doing. But there's a big conversation around it right now. And I think that we're going to keep seeing a lot more of that in the next few years.
Yeah. So one challenge in doing, research and, background data collection and interviews for the reality capture specification that BIMform Global has put together is, some of these are very large owners. One of them, I think, had over 6 million square feet, over 500 buildings in their portfolio that were scanned and modeled. And that went into the data sets. We were really grateful to get to do that kind of analysis. And then we had some that were larger aerospace manufacturers with one larger facility, and they might have 1.5 million square feet just with one scan project. What surprised me was how many of the facility management teams were not ready to receive all of the point cloud data.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of money having it modeled. And part of it is they didn't have their staff trained how to use the laser scan data. Some of what they wanted, it wasn't, they did not deem it worthwhile to model every aspect of the project. And so, like the mechanical rooms. And so they said, well, we would just reference the point cloud in that area. But one of them was having over 72 terabytes of point clouds. But they did not have computers or infrastructure set up to actually use it. The data is getting delivered and they're going to store it, but are your presentation, and so that was kind of one training, which you've already talked about, you're going to be hitting on. But also, is there any of your presentations that are going to deal with just preparing owners, large scale owners that build a lot of properties, own a lot of properties, educating them on how to receive all the data and how to digest it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe that there are a couple presentations that are going to hit on that, and it may be portions of.
Sure.
One will be diving into how to strategically plan for large efforts like that when you're building in digital twin program and you're looking at capturing a lot of data. I believe that one will dive into it. We also have, when we talk about data sizes, data storage, processing power, we're seeing we have a partnership with Dell where we're working with them on how do we help make recommendations for people in our industry as this data processing need is growing for local machines. And then we also have a presentation from Amazon Web Services talking about cloud computing and hosting and sharing. And we've got another company that talks about compression of data and delivery through cloud. And so data is a big ongoing problem. And I think it's one that we have to start looking at and addressing now in order to, again, handle even more scale that's going to come. But no, I think you're right in that a lot of clients and a lot of companies today are not ready to handle that data. They don't know what to do with it. Their IT is not ready for it. They don't know how to handle the point clouds or use them. So I still see the majority of projects, even when they want scanning, they want you to also then turn it back into a model or back into drawings or back into something that their teams are used to using. And that's another change that I think we will see more of over the next several years is teams starting to use point clouds directly, infrastructure being updated, software packages and online options, making it easier for them to digest. So yeah, I think there's going to be a bit of conversation around it. It's definitely a needed one.
Yeah, I think this next question I want to ask you about, and I really appreciate our time together. It's gone incredibly fast. Earlier in my career, I taught adjunct faculty at a university. I taught one evening class in VDC. This was probably 2006 through 2015 at a engineering university. So one of the things I did, and one was a great experience, but it was really a way to reach out and meet new talent. And at that time, it was very hard to find anyone who had background in VDC. So
yeah,
it was really a farm league for me in the department I was at the other company. We would just look for new talent. But I would get questioned, Will, I'm studying this. I really like this technology thing. What do I get my degree in?
Yeah.
And do I change my degree? And my response was, the best degree is one that's done, and finish it. And because you're going to have 5 careers and 3 of them don't exist yet. And so it doesn't matter what your degree in is, or even if you have a degree. But if you're good to get one, finish it. If it's in hard science, great. Construction engineering, architecture, structural engineering, civil engineering, whatever, survey.
Yeah.
Just finish it, because the technology is going to move so quickly. There are going to be new careers that don't even exist yet. And it's going to be, one, do you just keep learning? And so over that time, I've seen drones where you can get a career being a drone pilot at some large GCs, and that's now a career. Reality capture, terrestrial-based laser scanning, now a career. I believe data analytics is going to be a full-time position at some large owners and construction builders, and even some large architects, where they start to look at AI. So what careers have you seen created over the last 10 years? Mm-hmm. And another thing I want to throw out there as a concept, and I wanted you to push back on it or tell me if you agree or disagree. But I believe the building industry's changed more in the last 10 years than the previous 100. And I think it's going to change more in the next 5 than it has the last 10. We'll have another webinar later.
Yeah.
After you get through your conference, I want to revisit and just talk about that. But what new jobs or new careers have you seen start in the last 10 years? And what do you see on the horizon, maybe over the next 5 years? There's going to be a need. Firms are going to need someone who's just doing this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I very much agree on all of that. When it comes to the new careers, I mean, I get a lot of people that reach out, LinkedIn messages. They're like, man, I've seen what you've done the last several years. It's inspiring. It makes me want to go do something. Because I am totally open and share my story of like, I didn't go to college. I started as
Yeah.
a low entry level guy on a field crew, doing topos. And this technology and my passion for it led me to starting a business, to growing, doing projects all over the world for the biggest companies that exist. And so I've watched firsthand that if you get passionate about something, you dive in and be a learner, and then you're implementing it, you're willing to reach out, you're willing to try new things, there is massive opportunity. And I also say that lightly, and like, I do not believe everyone should go start their own business, but I use it as a way to show, look, I didn't have the degree, I didn't have 20 years experience yet, and there's a need for these things. And so whether you're in a company now, there's a lot of construction companies, there's a lot of architect companies, there's a lot of survey companies that are not yet fully into this. If you're someone who sees it and you're like, look, I want to be that guy that gets into it and learns it and becomes the champion internally, again, you can make a whole shift in your career. If you're somebody who doesn't have a career path yet, or you're in a job that you really dislike, you can find a firm that will bring you in and let you start learning in a entry-level position.
Yes.
And just in a couple years, you're now one of the most experienced people in the industry, right? Because there's only so many people. And what we see today is there are a lot of firms who have said, we believe in this stuff. We believe in reality capture. We want to grow a department. We're looking to hire a director. Well, guess what? There's only so many 10-year experienced director level people. So if you get started today, then in the next 5 years, you are that level of person. And I do believe when I look at the volume of need for these roles, if we're truly going to get to the point that all construction jobs, every asset is going to have some level of digital twin, we're going to need a massive amount of people that are coming in and creating careers around capturing technologies, from drones and scanners to data processing, to modeling, to simulations, to AI integration, it's not even creating just new jobs. It's literally creating like a whole new industry, because those technologies also integrate into so many different industries. So I think it's a massive opportunity, and there is a big need around it. And again, that's why I think that there are ways for people today to get involved. If they already are in a career or they already have a degree, great. If you don't know what you want to do yet, I also encourage, I get younger people, or I get parents who are like, my kid has no idea what they want to do. They haven't gone to college yet. And I see what you're doing. Should they get into this? My recommendation right now is like, seeing the path I went on, I'd say I would just go get started, hands in the technology. Because even as a business owner today, I would rather hire an entry-level person, somebody that has 4 years of scanning experience than someone with a degree. Because the degrees today are not teaching the skill set that I want for someone in reality capture. They're barely touching it, so.
That's a good point. One of the projects BIMform Global is working on is getting curriculum in high schools that are teaching VDC concepts. And a number of the software vendors have made their software available to the students. But the strategy there is really just to provide recorded content, because the teachers are not really ready to teach it. And, but, we've had in our own firm just high school students or high school graduates only that have done very well in reality capture. They went on to get a 4-year degree while here, and then transferred. They, said, well, I really want to work at a large construction firm. And that happened, but they got a great starting bonus because of their reality capture experience that had nothing to do with their 4-year degree. And they were hired to help lead reality capture in these large GC firms, some of which you're presenting at your conference. And so I just want to echo firsthand experience in what you're talking about. Education is ubiquitous everywhere now. It used to be before the internet, you had to go to a university because they were the gatekeepers of knowledge. Now you have all that on your phone. You just need someone to curate it, organize it, and that's what it sounds like Reality Capture Network's doing. So, Matthew, I really want to thank you for your time. Man, this went fast.
It did. Time flies when you're having fun, right? And these are fun conversations. It's a fun time in the industry, and I love. I've said this a lot, and I love like going back to it. I'm glad it came out at the conference and it got recorded, because I love putting this video out there where I'm just saying, look, we are one of the most important industries. We're literally building the world. Like, this is important work that can save lives, that can transform cities, that can increase capacity, that can increase safety. Like, as much fun as these technologies are, they're super important and super impactful. So it makes it easy to get excited about.
Excellent. Well, for everyone who's been watching, we did mention the LOD specification. You can obtain that at bemform.global LOD. And we mentioned the reality capture specification, which is also available there. And those can be downloaded from the website. And the major thoughts I want to leave you with is please look at signing up for the Reality Capture Network conference in Boise. Our next week's webinars, we will have guest speakers from Precast Concrete Institute, members of American Concrete Institute as well as construction side perspectives. We're going to be tackling concrete and building information modeling, and we'll actually also be addressing reality capture and how that ties together, form verification and topics along those lines. Later this month, we will have Lauren Hanuk, and she'll be bringing a construction firm perspective on how they're implementing construction technology in their firm. Matt, I guess we got 2 minutes left. I guess final thoughts on the conference starts, I guess, tell us what day of the week it starts and what people should be planning to get there.
Yeah, no worries. So most people fly in on Monday. We have a happy hour Monday evening for people that fly in, so they get to do some networking. And then it's a 3 full day conference. It is awesome. Jam-packed from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 3 days in a row. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, but you can find any information on realitycapturenetwork.com. And again, excited to build the community and hopefully meet some of the people here.
Definitely. And for the audience, we will go ahead and send out links to Matthew's organization. And Matthew, I'd love to have you back after you get through the conference and maybe give us a recap, because I guess you're going to be putting recordings of the content in your learning platform. Is that right?
Yes, it is. In fact, that's what's in there now in our education center on our website, is that we have the last 2 years worth of presentations. We put a big focus on filming everything so that people who don't make it still at some point can get access. So yes.
And there is a virtual component to this. If, I really want to go there, but I just can't get to Boise at this time. Is that being expanded this year?
Yeah, there is a live stream platform that we use so that anybody who does a virtual ticket can actually log in and chat, and they can see all the presentations. And so we've tried to create an opportunity for those that can't make it in person.
Well, I'm already excited to learn more about it. And so I'd encourage everyone to go visit your website. And thank you again for your time, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Definitely a great chat, and look forward to seeing what you continue to do.
Very good. Have a good day.
All right. Talk to you soon.